Hi, good day to the YouTube universe. Today we are doing some Costco Choice New York strips that we were able to get for $8.99 a pound, a fairly good deal since what I've seen, meat prices have gone up probably 30-40% with COVID. So very happy with these. Here we are hitting these with some salt and pepper. I do not subscribe to the Salt Bay theory of salting at the end. I believe that salt and pepper is really indispensable to getting a great crust. So we're just going to hit each side of these with some kosher salt and a little bit of pepper. And here's some fresh pepper that we're grinding on top. Hit the other side. Good coat of salt and pepper. Normally I'm a little more careful to hit the sides, especially of thicker steaks that are about 1 inch thick like this, but nothing tragic, not a tragic mistake. And so here we are. We're going to start with Team Griddle. Essentially, my cast iron pan is not big enough to do 4 New York strips of this size all at once. Therefore, we decided to break out the griddle on the gas stove and do our low cook portion of the reverse sear. This is what we will call a team pan reverse sear technique, and really what we are looking to do here is just to start getting the steaks up to temperature in preparation for the final sear in the cast iron. As you can see, even at this lower temperature, I have this on about medium to low. My gas stove cranks out the BTUs. So it is important to not make the heat too high and really to flip frequently in an effort to have an even cook throughout. Notice we're even starting to get a little bit of browning here at this lower temperature, and that's going to make the subsequent searing process that much easier. Second from the top, very good browning happening. These are fairly well marbled. Marblicious, as my kids are fond of saying. New York strips, and you can see a lot of the fat starting to render on top of the griddle, and that fat and that marbling is really facilitating this this pre-sear, if you will. Steaks are coming along. There is the Thermapen. I'll put a shameless plug in for a Thermapen instant read thermometer. They are a little bit on the expensive side, $60 to $80 depending on what you find. I have a nice big crack in mine, but nevertheless, it's been quite reliable, and you will never have an issue getting a very fast, highly accurate temperature. So here are the 4 New York strips that have come off for their low cook portion. I pulled these between 110 and 115 degrees, and we're going to let those rest for 10 minutes. In the meantime, we are going to start to melt some beef fat. This is beef fat that I have rendered from a brisket I cut up a few weeks ago and then rendered in the Instant Pot. And so once we get a smoking hot cast iron going, we are ready to start searing the sides of the steaks. I have a little bit of splatter going on, and I think some of that is a function of I perhaps didn't dry down or pat down the steaks as well as I could have. So I think that's a reasonable step to improve next time, making sure that the steak is nice and dry to avoid that moisture causing splatters. And this is a technique I've gotten to be fond of, moving the steak around in the hot oil and constantly introducing that hot oil for the steak. It definitely facilitates the searing process. All right, let's hit the side here. So far, so good. And flip it around. Again, always introducing that hot beef fat onto the side to facilitate the good sear. All right, sides of the first one are complete. I'm not going to show you all 4 steaks doing the sides. I think 2 will be good enough for instructional purposes. But rest assured, all 4 strips are completed with exactly this technique. Smoking hot pan, kicking up a lot of smoke and grease. Paid some good money to have a vent fan installed over the stove, and it's certainly some money well spent to support my staking habit. Once again, hitting each side. And I'm playing around with my technique. My tongs actually started to get fairly hot here. Not something I've really experienced before, but having to be a little bit creative here in how I'm moving the steak around. All right, pull that guy off, and we're going to let those steaks rest for another period of time. I firmly believe that patience is a virtue with cooking steak. You want those steaks to rest and to have the temperature gradient even out throughout the piece of meat before you attempt the final sear. Hit this side, and it's a relatively fast process, and that's good to go. Now doing the reverse side. And those have, again, been resting for about 10 minutes. This time I was a lot more careful to pat the steaks dry before we start the main sear. Once again, our cast iron pan is screaming hot. Threw in a couple of tablespoons of just regular unsalted butter. Swirl it around, get it good and melted and mixed up with our beef fat. And we are going to start a quick, short and sweet sear on this guy. Again, I'm a big fan of the idea of moving the steak around, introduce that hot fat to help facilitate the searing process. There's lots of people that swear, hey, don't move the steak, let it sit. Don't get impatient. I'm quite the opposite. I think that new hot fat and oil constantly introducing to the surface of your steak is going to give you a far better result. I'm not really timing anything here, 30, 45 seconds or so per side. Just kind of using the force as opposed to a more formal timing process. All right, so here we are with the basting process of our steak, and this is really going to finalize the sear and get into all those little cracks and crevices and make sure they get nice and browned up. Now with the basting tool I'm using there, it's just a 1/3 cup measuring cup. My hand does get fairly close to the oil, and I did have some splatter marks to show for it yesterday, so I've treated myself to a full-length 12-inch basting spoon that I will use on the next video.
One more.
So one steak down, we're going to show you a second one here. Same technique. And we'll do the last two off camera. But don't worry, you will be privy to all of the results. So this is a very hot pan, but the gas is not at the absolute top. Whenever you have you're basting with butter, you really want to go down to about a medium high, so your butter doesn't blacken and that you don't get that coal-like texture on your steak, which is certainly no fun. This is still plenty hot to get the job done. Moving the steak around. Give it another few seconds. A little bit of splash there. And let's get the basting going. The one thing with respect to basting, it's a great technique. I do it every time, but it's also important to baste sparingly because that oil is so hot and because it sneaks into all of those cracks and crevices. If you baste too much, you may get some more gray band than really what is ideal. Let's hit that other side, and we can see the sear is really coming along nicely. And that basting just takes it to the next level. All right, and so that is our final results of the 4 steaks that we completed. Very happy with the sears. A couple of them are maybe a bit spottier than I'd like, and here we are with the long-awaited interior shot. And you can see excellent sear, and it looks like this came in at a solid medium. Generally prefer more of a medium rare, but this was all delicious nevertheless. Thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, and I hope you found this informative, and happy staking to one and all. Go Team Pan. Take care. Bye.